For the 2025 Ryder Cup, single-day tickets have been reported to cost $750, a 200% increase from the last rendition of the tournament. That's also 5 times more than the Masters for a golf event that is much different for what golf fans are used to. But the drama and confusion around this tournament's financials go a lot deeper than that. And so today, we're gonna find out how this tournament is able to fund golf programs all over the world with millions of dollars they generate, and also why this year's edition may be the most valuable one ever. But to understand how we got here, we have to understand the significant ways the Ryder Cup has changed over time. Initially, the tournament was put into place in the mid-1920s to encourage American golfers to go and compete in the Open Championship across the pond. And a rich guy named Samuel Ryder donated a cup and some money to get the tournament going. And over time, as you would assume, it changed a little bit, changing who was allowed to play for who and how often it was played, but for the most part, it was the best American golfers to play against the best players abroad. And over time, with the growth of golf, the fame of some celebrity golfers, as well as the unique style that the Ryder Cup had, created for quite the money-making opportunities, one that would be taken advantage of by the PGA of America and a few different foundations over in the UK to help fund the programs and systems that these tours had in place, as well as to grow and maintain the professional game as a whole. But nowadays, that story's changed a little bit, as not only has the Ryder Cup become one of the most watched and therefore most valuable events in golf, but also becoming wildly appealing as a money-making opportunity for brands and companies, and the companies that run it as well. And they definitely do not need one-off grants from single investors like Samuel Ryder anymore. This is probably going to be the most obvious considering the dialogue that we have seen around the Ryder Cup this season, as they have increased prices of tickets to the Bethpage Black Ryder Cup to $750 for tournament day rounds on paper. And the reason I say on paper is because I've seen several screenshots from a few individuals showing processing fees and taxes and other things leading to the cost of a single ticket be well above $1,000. Assuming they sell 50,000 tickets a day for the 3 tournament days, which is what they are estimating, and with a conservative assumption of $750 per ticket, which I know isn't true because of those inflated fees and the fact that some of the sponsors are either paying more or paying nothing for some of the tickets. We're just going to do what we can with what we have and multiply that $750 ticket by 150,000 potential fans to be $112 million just from ticket sales. We do know that that is the money they're bringing in for the attendees coming to the tournament, and you'd expect that number to be much higher when looking at merch sales as well, though potentially not as much. I went to Bethpage to check out the course, kind of get a better idea of what everything was going to look like for the actual tournament rounds, and I also hopped into the pro shop to get a few items and get a little bit of an idea of what markups would look like between normal Bethpage Black gear and Ryder Cup gear to potentially get an idea of the amount of money they are bringing in, or the prices at least that attendees are going to pay. And when I went to Bethpage Black, there were a ton of people doing what I'm doing, camping out so that they could play the Black course. And I get it, it's legendary, but the Ryder Cup probably isn't going to make any money from that. Just Bethpage is going to take the money from their tee times. However, when I was watching these people camp out for up to 48 hours, I thought it would have been great to have some unbelievable protein snacks while you're there. And that is where today's sponsor, Magic Spoon, comes in. Magic Spoon is a diet-friendly, protein-based cereal that has allowed me to begin eating cereal again as an adult. They also have a few protein treats that are fantastic things to throw in your golf bag and bring on you on the course, all while having very low sugar, while the cereal has 0 sugar. If you want to try Magic Spoon, go to magicspoon.com/Rolu, and you can use code Rolu there to get $5 off, whether it's the treats, whether it's a cereal. I recommend trying both because they're fantastic. I really, really liked the peanut butter, the chocolate, and the fruit flavors. However, go over to their website, get $5 off using my code, or you can find them at your local grocery store or Amazon as well. They also have a 100% money-back guarantee, so if there's something you don't like about that and you're not satisfied, they will give you your money back. No questions asked. So again, go check out magicspoon.com/Rolu. Get yourself some fantastic protein cereal that actually fits in the diets of adult people, and thank me later. Yeah, I put the milk in first before the cereal. But back to what I learned when I went to Bethpage that day about this merch. As I said, when I was there, I picked up a head cover and a few ball markers, one for my dad and one for myself, but mainly to get an idea of what the markups were. And it looked like they weren't marked up at all, at least for the most part. As I saw, a lot of the polos were not marked up between Ryder Cup or Bethpage Black attire, and everything was more or less just rebadged Ryder Cup with the same exact price tag as before. That's not too bad, and it gave me an idea that potentially what the prices these fans will be paying at these tents will not be nearly as inflated as I was potentially worried they would be. However, we want to get large revenue numbers here. The problem being the PGA of America doesn't make any of this available. To do that, we're going to use the Masters as a bit of a kind of a comparative proxy for an idea of what the Ryder Cup could bring in. Obviously, we're going to modify it a little bit though. The Masters brings in about $70 million per year in merch sales. Now, the Ryder Cup won't be anywhere near that. For one, the Ryder Cup tickets are much more available. It's much more likely that someone is going to be able to go to the Ryder Cup if they want to than they are going to be able to go to the Masters, because tickets are much less exclusive, and therefore I would assume that an attendee would have less interest in buying or in buying as much between the Masters and the Ryder Cup. But what we can do is use the way that golfers have made their decision to view or not view specific golf events to give us an idea of how much more they value the Masters, or at least viewing the Masters, to how they do viewing the Ryder Cup, and then use that to say, hey, if they're this much more willing to view the Masters, they're probably potentially this much more willing to buy something from the Masters. So if we use 2021 numbers, the last time the Ryder Cup was in the United States, the Masters had 2.7 times more viewers on Sunday on the final day than the Ryder Cup did. And with that number, we can go and assume that an attendee would have 2.7 times more interest in buying something at the Masters. So if we divide that 70 million in merchandise sales that the Masters is estimated to bring in, we get $26 million. Now, this is just a bit of a placeholder here. There's a lot of problems with this. I get it, that's fine, but it gives us an idea of how much they could make, and I think honestly it's a lot more considering the price of the tickets and the fact that it only comes to the United States every 4 years and it doesn't come to New York very often. I think this is the second time it's ever been hosted in New York. For that reason, I would actually have that number a little bit higher, but for now, we're going to go with the kind of low estimate here, which was what I think $26 million would be. But when I did the Masters version of this video, I would then go on to the food income, and I talked about how the Masters charged nothing for food, and it was so interesting because they could have charged so much more and price gouged like you see from sporting stadiums and events all over the United States. But for a second time now in the golfing world, that's not the case here, with the PGA of America, I guess, feeling gracious and allowing their $750 ticket holders to get free food and drinks, non-alcoholic, I believe. That means there's going to be no technical food income from this entire event, though I'm sure the alcohol numbers are going to be redonkulous because it's the Ryder Cup, because energy is going to be high. I have zero idea how to estimate that, though. What I do know, and what I don't have to do nearly as much math about, is the TV revenue, and it's about $55 million. In 2015, the NBC signed a deal with the PGA of America for $440 over 15 years, allowing NBC to control the broadcasting rights for the domestic market of the Ryder Cup. Interestingly enough, that's only about half as much as the, the USGA and NBC's deal for the US Open's broadcasting rights were. And that's a lot of money, but I think there's a lot more money in sponsors than potentially we're even able to account for right now. The Ryder Cup will have a number of sponsors covering pretty much every facet of the tournament, including the Rolex clock, sponsors on billboards and all of that, and clothing sponsors, which is something we pretty much never see when associated with a golf tournament. This year, the 2025 American team is being sponsored by Ralph Lauren, and ignoring the fact that I think some of these designs are absolutely terrible and the fact that they've kind of been that way since, that's something that is unique only to the Ryder Cup, and so will bring in a lot of money, especially considering that these competitors are not able to wear their normal sponsors at all. And so if we consider that unique sponsorship ability, possibility. And then take the estimated sponsorship value for the US Open. Well, if we compare their two viewerships for 2021, like we did with the Masters, that gives us a general idea of how much the Ryder Cup is worth and value to sponsors. And then you can probably add something in there for the specific Polo Ralph Lauren numbers. I have not found anything that indicates how much they do pay. However, Ralph Lauren also sponsors the Olympic team, and when they do, they pay royalties on what they sell in merchandise tents and on their website and things like that for the Olympics. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they have a similar deal like that with the Ryder Cup. But again, that is really, really hard to just guess at. Though I do want to make it clear that that does exist because it is another money-making opportunity for the Ryder Cup. But again, as the PGA of America makes nothing obvious, we have to go off these estimates. And I think the best way to make these estimates is compare and contrast the biggest tournaments with one another and the way they make money. And I also think the realm of golf has changed a little bit this year, where the excitement around the Ryder Cup feels a little bit more than in 2021 and 2023, and added the fact that it's in New York, that Bethpage is this hype place that I've talked about in the past, that I'll link after this video. I think that will create a better viewing opportunity, but it's really, really hard to quantify any of that. So going off the very rudimentary estimation plans we've made so far today, it's a rough total revenue of $216 million for the running, production, and entertaining of the Ryder Cup tournament at Bethpage Black this year. I think it's a lot more than that, but this is the best I could do with what we had, and at least gives us a very rough idea of how much money the PGA of America brings. But if you enjoyed this video, check this one out about how the Masters makes money, or this one about the entire story behind Bethpage Black.